Hey cuties, I'm the cutest pie, and welcome to me reading December Song by Lyrical Wandering on AO3. I'll put the link to the fanfic and any trigger warnings in the description, as I've not read this before. This is a fresh read, or at least the second half of it is, because it's like my third time trying to read this. But yeah, definitely just read the description before watching the video. But yes, we're going to start reading. And forgive me if I don't sound my best. It is definitely 2 in the morning. But I'm trying my best. Makoto Naegi was feeling lucky. In fact, he was the luckiest guy currently attending Homespeak Academy. Or so he was trying to convince himself on this particular afternoon. It was the final day of school before Homespeak would let out for winter break, and every student, teacher, and faculty member would head home for the holidays. Which meant that if Makoto was actually going to shoot his shot, it was either time to do it now or risk having to wait until school started up again. In January. Even thinking about it made it feel like a lifetime away. "Come on, Naegi, you've got this. What are you so worried about?" Saika Mizona prodded him as the two best friends walked companionably side by side around the track field. A light dusting of snow had fallen earlier that morning, and the air was crisp and chilled so that their breath billowed out in front of them each time they had something to say. Makoto shrugged. What was he so worried about? The girl he'd caught feelings for, quite literally on the first week of school, had ended up becoming one of his closest friends over the past semester. It had taken some time for the elusive ultimate detective to come around, but Makoto considered the rare privilege granted to him well worth the wait. Kyoko Kirigiri had shared with him on more than one occasion since they'd first met that she didn't trust others easily. Being acknowledged as someone she wanted to spend her time with and allow into her life in any capacity was made that much more special because of her reputation as a loner. But still, Makoto's patience as he'd attempted to make friends with her had been tested to its limits, attempting to bridge their friendship over this next step now, and it was a fairly big step, at least when it came to Kyoko's standards of closeness. "I don't know," he sighed, looking down at his sneakers and the prints they left behind in the mud. "I guess I'm just worried about scaring her away. You know how shy she gets, and asking her to spend Christmas with me and my family this year is kind of a big deal. We're so painfully ordinary, I'm worried we might not be able to keep her entertained. And I also don't want her to think... so sorry. And I also don't want her to get the wrong idea or anything, you know?" Saika giggled behind her hands, kept warm by a pair of fashionable powder-pink mittens. "Can we really call Kirigiri shy, though? I doubt I'd ever met anyone so straightforward. And I mean that in the best way, really. When she doesn't have anything to say, she just won't. But when she does..." Saika shook her head fondly. "She's not one to mince words, is she?" Makoto scratched his cheek with a crooked smile. "I mean, yeah, that's true. Maybe I'm just trying to avoid making things awkward. It's totally not her fault. Her work always keeps her so busy, and she's never really had time for friends until, like, now. But sometimes it's kind of hard to communicate things to her in a way that she gets, even for me." Saika nodded, a far-off look in her eyes. "I can definitely relate to that, but inviting her to spend Christmas with you is so sweet, and totally not too forward in my book. She's going to be alone for the holidays this year otherwise, right?" "Right," Makoto trailed off, starting to feel sad about just thinking about it. Apparently, Kyoko's grandfather had been called upon to facilitate a major investigation overseas, one that would keep him so busy that he'd most likely not be back before the new year. Which could have been fine, except that Kyoko had no other family in her life to celebrate with. It would be just her at home, spending Christmas and New Year's almost entirely alone, save for a few of her grandfather's staff as company. "They're all nice enough." Oh, excuse me. "They're all nice enough, but grandfather turns over house help so often that I'm near... Ooh. Gonna start that over. "They're all nice enough, but grandfather turns over house help so often that I'm never really able to get acquainted with anyone before they're dismissed. Besides, I usually keep to myself." I'm so sorry that her voice fluctuated so much just then. I'm trying, I am. Kyoko had informed Makoto at lunch together, just a few days before. It's rather bleak being I'm so sorry. It is so late. It's rather bleak being in grandfather's home during the winter months. with not much else for me to do besides read, if I'm not working, that is. Though he tried to maintain a neutral expression, Makoto had been thoroughly mortified, and even worse at hiding it. So much so, in fact, that he'd nearly dropped his chopsticks halfway into his mouth. But what about decorating the house and watching Christmas movies? Or opening presents? Or going to see the lights? Or doing anything to celebrate? Kyoko had shaken her head with little else to say. Grandfather never made too much fuss over holidays, even when I was younger. I guess I grew up internalizing his values. A small smile replaced the brief flicker of hurt on her face. However, I might enjoy hearing more about the Naegi family traditions that you've grown up with. Please go on about opening gifts and the like. It had been hard to share so freely about his family's holiday traditions and joys after finding out about the lack thereof in Kyoko's life. He was able to shake the sadness that had come over him when Kyoko's expression had waned to the weary, defeated look it had, all the way back to his dorm after his classes were over, and even later, after he and Kyoko had parted ways that day. Makoto had made up his mind to help change things for his friend this year. With permission granted by his parents on a call that night before bed, Makoto decided to invite Kyoko for a winter vacation. He wasn't thinking at all at the time about how it might get weird to ask her to spend break with him and his family, but now as the nerves were setting in, and as the time to actually ask her drew near. I know firsthand how rough it can feel during the holidays if you don't have a normal cookie-cutter family to celebrate with, Sayaka was saying as Makoto snapped back to the present. I grew up without a mom and haven't spent Christmas at home with my dad in forever because I'm always on tour. This year won't be any different either. It was true. Sayaka would be boarding a plane for Singapore with her band the next day. She sighed. Not that it matters, with my crazy out of lifestyle eating up most of my time anyway. If I didn't have my girls with me, I honestly don't know what I'd do. Makoto knew how much Sayaka's bandmates meant to her. They were a found family of sorts, bound together by a love of music and loyalty to their craft. He leaned over to touch his shoulder to her sympathetically. It sounds like your girls are all the family you need right now. Try not to worry about things too much. Sayaka laughed, a high lilting sound. I try not to, she perked up. A certain cheerfulness restored to her tone. But either way, we're getting off track here. This isn't about me. This is about you working up the courage to ask Kirigiri to spend winter vacay with you. Now come on, why don't you practice on me? Makoto gulped. I'm not all sure I'm good at it. Ooh, I'm so sorry. Makoto gulped. I'm not sure I'm all that good at improv. Oh, come on, don't be silly. Sayaka stopped in her tracks, turning to face Makoto with an encouraging smile. Here, I'll be Kirigiri, and you be you, of course. Isn't that kind of already implied? Makoto thought, feeling very much so put on the spot and dumbfounded. Okay. Right. Here goes nothing, I guess. Makoto took a deep breath, centering himself. So, Kiri? I wanted to ask if... Wait. You call her Kiri? Sayaka grabbed his wrist, her eyes shining. I didn't know. That's so cute, Naegi. Does she like the pet name? What? No, it's not a pet name. It's not like we're dating or anything. Yet. Oh, excuse me. Yet, a new voice caught Makoto and Sayaka's attention. They whipped around to see who it belonged to and spotted Leon Kawada, their classmate and Sayaka's boyfriend, casually jogging up to them from the outer field. Hey guys, he greeted, not even slightly out of breath despite his pace. What's up? Teaching Naegi the tips and tricks it takes to ask a girl out, huh, babe? He grinned, starting to walk backwards as Sayaka and Makoto resumed their walk. Sayaka blushed as she giggled. In a way, long story short, I think he's still too ridiculous to notice that Kirigiri likes him just as much as he likes her. Makoto could feel his ears burning, despite the cold. He shot Sayaka a mock glare, only somewhat miffed that she and her boyfriend were gossiping about him behind his back, right to his face. Hey, hold on. You gotta give me some credit here. I didn't say I think Kiri isn't interested in me like that. I just don't want to be wrong and make her uncomfortable, you know? And anyway, I'm not about to ask her out today. He attempted to clarify to Leon. I'm just trying to invite her to spend Christmas with me and my family. She's going to be all by herself for the holidays otherwise, Sayaka explained. Leon frowned. Seriously? He rubbed the stubble on his chin thoughtfully. Man, that sucks. It's real chill of you to invite her to spend it with you and your folks, Nagi. I'd just go for it. No need to sweat it. I'm sure she'll say yes. And even if she doesn't, it's a very sweet gesture that I'm sure she'll appreciate anyways. A softer voice piped up as Leon, Sayaka, and Mondo approached the schoolyard field, which was covered in a light sheet of snow. Chihiro Fujisaki, Kiyotake Ishimaru, and Mondo Awada were all clustered together around a small mound that vaguely resembled a snowman, though it had begun to lose its form. Chihiro waved and smiled shyly. Sorry if I'm interrupting, but I couldn't help it over here. If you don't mind me saying so, Naegi, I agree with Kawada and Maizono. You should just go for it. Makoto thought embarrassed. Couldn't help but laugh fondly at Chihiro's enthusiasm. It seemed that Mondo and Taka's individual intensities were rubbing off on him more than usual these days. Thanks, Fujisaki. I'd like to. I just seem to be lacking the confidence today. Most days, actually. Chihiro nodded his understanding, but before he could answer, a flustered Taka spoke next. Naegi, Maizono, Kawada, I must request your assistance as we restore this ailing snowman to its prime. He half-shouted, gesturing towards the snowman and Mondo, who was the only thing responsible for keeping it semi-upright at the moment. We built him yesterday afternoon, but this morning's sun must have caused him to melt a little, Chihiro explained. Sayaka flashed her signature smile. Oh my, no problem, she sang with a little bounce. Come on, you two, let's go help. She grabbed Makoto and Leon by their hands and bounced over to Mondo, who acknowledged them with a short salute. Thanks for the extra pairs of hands, guys. Taka's become pretty attached to this poor guy here. Everyone joined in to help the cause, each of them stooping down to gather some snow. Makoto grabbed two fistfuls, wincing only a little as his bare fingers smarted from the cold. Why, oh why did I forget my gloves at my dorm this morning? Don't mention it, Leon answered for them, packing a loose area with an extra large snowball. While we're here, you guys can help us hype Naegi up in return. He wants to ask Kirigiri to help. I'm so sorry. He wants to ask Kirigiri to spend Christmas with him. Makoto's hands suddenly weren't cold anymore. He opened his mouth to explain, but everyone started talking for him all at once. Again. Oh, no kidding? Just go for it, man. It's obvious that chick's into you. I agree. The chemistry between Naegi and Kirigiri is undeniable. By all means, asking her out is the proper thing to do. Makoto groaned internally. No use explaining the situation for a third or fourth time, or agonizing over asking his close friends a simple question any longer. Okay, but with what words, you guys? Do I just go, hey, Kiri, I was... I'm gonna restart that paragraph. Dialogue, whatever you want to call it. Okay, but with what words, you guys? Do I just go, hey, Kiri, I was thinking about how you said you'd be alone for Christmas this year, and I was wondering if you'd like to spend winter vacation with me and my family, or does that sound too rushed and stupid? I think that would be an adequate way to ask if you wanted my say. Makoto's mouth instantly went dry. He spun around to find Kyoko herself, all flushed cheeks and downcast eyes, right in front of him. Makoto's pulse was in his throat, but he somehow choked out her name. Kiri! I'm sorry. A moment of that dreaded awkward silence rang out before Mondo literally cleared his throat. Yo, guys, let's head back to the dorms and start packing up. I think we've done all we can do to help Frosty here. For now. Taka gaped up at him, looking wounded. But nothing, you moron, Mondo hissed, yanking Taka by his collar and nodding towards Chihiro, Leon, and Sayaka, silently asking them to follow. Leon winked at Makoto with a knowing grin, and Sayaka mouthed, "Good luck," as they quickly cleared the area to give their friend some space. Makoto turned anxiously back to Kiri, rocking back and forth on the balls of his feet. What do I say? Sorry about that, Makoto spoke up eventually with a nervous laugh. I meant to ask you later, without an audience. A quiet smile quirked up at the edges of Kyoko's mouth. A dusting pink shone on her cheeks. No need, she replied, finally meeting his eyes. If you recall, I already said yes. Wait, she had? Oh! Makoto choked on his own spit and coughed, praying he wasn't blushing too hard. I mean, that's great. I'm so happy you can come home with me for break. I mean, me and my family, they'll be there, at my house, to celebrate Christmas. Real smooth, Naegi, he mentally cursed himself, but Kyoko's smile only grew stronger. Will they now? Kyoko teased, and Makoto could tell she was enjoying watching him fumble to stay cool. I should hope so. I'll be looking forward to meeting them. Makoto smiled, warmed at the thought. For sure. They were really hoping you would say yes when I asked them if it was okay to invite you over. They've heard a lot about you from me. Kyoko nodded, and though it was harder to read her expression this time, it seemed that she was happy to hear that. So, shall we? Pack up and head home together, I mean. Makoto couldn't have tampered down his joy even if he tried. It was written all over his dorky smile that quickly spread across his face. Absolutely. Let's go. Alright, that is all that I'll be reading for tonight. I'm not exactly sure how long this is going to be, so I don't know how many parts I'm going to make for this, but I will try and get the second part out as soon as possible. Have a nice night, day, evening, afternoon, wherever you are, but, stay happy, stay hydrated, and I'll see you soon.